because we're always a minimum on a commercial shoot. We're always a minimum 3-person team, and then the gear. So the gear is highly specialized. It's not cheap. It's always being like I just spent the new Inspire 3 just came out. Like we've been on the Inspire 2 for 6 years.
I was going to ask you about this.
I've been through a dozen Inspire 2s. The Inspire 3 just came out. We've ordered one. We're going to see how it is, and then if it's good, we'll have to order a couple more. It's $25,000 US for the package, and we'll have to have a few of them. And in a year when there's this writer strike going on, of course.
Yeah.
So we're constantly updating the fleet. We bought another Alta X, our big heavy lift machine this year too. So we have 2 of those because we used to have the X, a really heavy lift machine, and then we had the 8 if the X wasn't functional or as a backup. But it wasn't as high a capacity. Now we have 2 identical units of our heavy lift. We'll have 2 or 3 of the medium lift, and you got to have them all there ready to go. Sorry about the water bottle noises.
It's all good.
It's all right.
Sounds like me doing sit-ups. So your heavy lift, you're talking carrying cinema cameras.
Yeah, so the heavy lift, the Alta X's are, we call it the Ultra, what do I call it now? If I market it as Ultra Heavy Lift, I think. So we got ultra heavy lift, medium lift, which is the Inspires, and then small stuff, and now FPV too, which is a whole nother bag of nuts, as you guys know, because that's usually what we're working on with you. But the Alta X, the heavy lift machine, it'll fly a 35-pound payload. So pretty much any camera and lens package that they want to throw at us. Because in the old days, like we'd have, a big octocopter 8-bladed machine, and be like, wow, that's a giant drone, and then the DP would come out with the camera. It's like, okay, no problem. Then they come out with the lens, and it'd be like, oh God, here we go. The lens, it's too big. We got to tell them we can't do it. Yeah. And the last thing you want to do is tell anybody in film that you can't do anything.
Totally.
That's your last day on that job. So you got to figure out a way to do it. So when FreeFly came out with the Alta X and it can carry 35 pounds, now all of a sudden we don't have to say no. Like,
now, do you build this rig yourself?
No. We used to. I used to build all my machines. Up until the Alta 8, we built everything before that because there really wasn't stuff off the shelf that was good, reliable, specialized enough to really do what we needed it to do. Since then, I think drones have become not mainstream enough, but in demand enough in film and TV that there's definitely an industry building these things. There are still people who build their own, and that's great. We know how to do it. There's value in knowing what goes into your machine and how it works, how it thinks, because you're basically building a system out of a whole bunch of really specialized components, and they all need to work together. You can learn a lot building machines, and I think everybody who flies heavy lift drones should at some point have built one. The way the industry is now, there's not any value in that, I don't think. And a lot of shows, they won't let you fly home built or like Franken-drone, they'll call it.
Right, Franken-drone.
Yeah.
So if the Inspire 3 is $25,000, what's one of these huge heavy lift deals worth?
The drone is, it's not just the drone. That's the thing. It's the drone. It's the batteries. Like the batteries are $800 each. It takes 2 per flight, and you've got to have 20 of those. You got to have 4 chargers to charge the batteries. You got to have the controllers. You got to have the video downlink so the director and the DP and everybody can see what you're shooting and how great it is. You've got to have a whole backup unit standing by. I mean, by the time you get into a heavy lift package, you're probably looking at 50, 60 grand anyway. And then once you add a second one, more than that.
Yeah, I wasn't going to get one or anything. Yeah. I'm just curious.
I might have one for sale if it's writer strike.
Oh, is that
true?
Well, you might have some Inspire 2s.
I have some. Well, we'll keep the Inspire 2s as backups.
Okay.
Like we'll have the Inspire 3. And then the Inspire 2 will be the because it's still a great machine. It's not as good in low light. It's not as good at night. Really, the Inspire 3 doesn't. We don't know yet because we haven't actually seen it and used it. We only know the propaganda that we're told in the advertising from China. But it looks amazing. It does do some different stuff. But at the end of the day, it's the image quality coming out of the Inspire 2 has been more than enough for even big shows, even.
What do you notice with each upgrade of drone? What is the technology that you notice the most?
More Well, when the Inspire came along, that was. I mean, you're familiar with that one. That's the one that
Sure.
with the legs that go up.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got the built-in. They
It's a
built
beautiful
their own
little
camera.
drone.
It's a
Yeah,
beautiful
it's
little
gorgeous.
drone. It's plug and play. It comes out of one box. That was the big thing. We went from having 10 flight cases or 6 flight
Oh, yeah.
cases to putting it all together to having to be there an hour before to showing up on set, opening up the case, pulling it out, putting the battery on, putting the camera on, and going, zzz, zzz, and it's ready to go. So if we're doing like a car commercial, like
Amazing.
we're often with you guys, we can set up and be ready to go in so little time. It's like, well, we need you guys on the corner over there. We run down the road, we get on the corner, boop, we're ready to go. As opposed to
Stellar. Yeah.
an hour pre-call for the minimum hour pre-call for the drone team to get everything built up. And that's once the gear is at my trailer. The trailer's
balanced.
parked. We're at the trailer. We have everything and we're ready to go.
Okay, I see.
That's one of the big differences. The other difference, it's always image quality, but the image quality, even since the Inspire 2, it shoots 6K Cinema DNG RAW. That's been plenty for people for a long time.
Yeah.
What you don't have with with the drones with the integrated camera, like the Inspires, you don't have the ability for a DP or a director to put their own flavor on the imagery that's coming out. They can't put an anamorphic lens. They can't put that certain brand of prime lens that they want to put on there that
Right.
does the lens flares in a certain way that they've used on the other camera in the movie. We don't have the ability with the Inspires to do that, and that's when they're like, oh, got to fly a heavy lift machine. And that's great. Still, I'd say in the last couple of years, more than 50% of our work is still heavy lift,
Okay.
which is I actually like better sometimes. I like it. I like it better because it's more challenging. And especially since they invented the Alta X, it's that machine just works. It flies for a long period of time. In the old days with the heavier machines, we'd launch them, get lined up for the shot. It takes a couple minutes to do that, and then you're looking at your battery, and it's like, and you got to tell them, it's like, oh, I got to land, I got to change batteries.
Because those the smaller ones are always, when they take off like so stable and so
Yeah.
beautifully.
Yeah.
And those big beasts are always like trying to rebalance or something.
It's physics. I mean, they're pushing more air, and it's when you learn to fly, you learn about ground effect. So especially when you're close to the ground, that machine is just pushing a huge amount of air at the ground. It's bouncing up off the ground, and then it's distorting the airflow around that thing. So it's actually its own enemy when it's close to the ground. So usually with the big machines, once I see that it's spooled up properly, we'll lift off. And I don't know if you've noticed, a lot of times I'm out of here because the
Yeah.
ground is my enemy. That's where people are.
Get off the cushion.
Yeah, yeah,
That's-
right.
That's where people are. That's where there's things to bump into. That's where the ground is the closest. As soon as I'm above the tree line and away, and I'm away from that ground effect, dirty air, it's happy days.
It's just a lot easier. Yeah.
And
Okay.
the Inspire, it weighs 7 pounds, 8 pounds, so it's pushing very little air. That's one of the things that makes it good, though, too. Like it's more like if you need to you could almost fly it in this room. I mean, you could fly it in this room if you were crazy.
I've actually flown my drone in this room.
So yeah, it's the right tool for the right job. So it depends.